Join me today as we troubleshoot this 1986 BMW 325 ES. Right now it's got an S52 in it, and the customer gave this to me because he's got some wires burning up in his engine harness and he doesn't know why. We're gonna figure out why that is. We're gonna get this thing running. We're gonna get it back on the road. So here we've got a 1997 BMW S52 engine from an M3. It's got some wiring gremlins in it, and the customer's already replaced one harness and still popped a wire in the same location. So we're going to take a look at what that location is, why it might have popped, but we first need to check our powers and grounds. First thing we really need to do when we take a look at any car. Does the fuel pump run? Do we have powers and grounds? And do we have any type of miswire going on elsewhere in the engine harness? So let's get right to it. All right, doing a quick evaluation here. The harness itself looks good. There is a burnt wire. It's this wire right here. You can see this burnt up pretty bad in multiple different spots. It's a gray wire with a yellow stripe. And that goes to this relay. It goes to this purple relay. This purple relay is the secondary air pump relay. And you can see that there was a thing on it here that he kind of was playing with that already. But this guy is definitely fried all the way through. So why is that one broken? So that's the first thing. Second thing is powers and grounds. So we know that we've got our powers and grounds going to the right location here. However, the ground on here, that's the ground. That is not good for a ground, and what happens is you can actually have voltage spikes due to a bad connection or no connection at all. So that obviously needs to be fixed, but I don't think that's the root cause of the problem. I think it definitely doesn't help. And since we're replacing this harness because of this burnt wire anyway, I don't really have a problem with ripping up this entire harness to see what else might have been compromised in the harness as a result of that burnt wire. We also put 12 volts directly to the fuel pump just to make sure that we're getting fuel pressure into the rail. We do have a leak down here, and this leak, which has now been since cleaned up, proves that we not only have a fuel pump working, which we can hear, but we also have fuel pressure going to the rail. Now, is it going to the right, correct side of the rail? I don't know. Again, I'm making an assumption that the previous owner has them hooked up correctly because it did run at one point, now it doesn't. But yeah, so there's no clamp on that fuel line. That obviously needs to have a clamp on it. So a couple of mechanical things we need to fine tune as well, but we definitely are going to be removing this harness. This harness, this whole setup has the secondary air pump system removed. What that means is that that relay that actually was been burning up that wire is actually not needed at all. So the relay could just be completely unplugged, and it really should have no effect on the way that the engine performs, starts up, or runs. And that relay is this purple one here. Whether it's supposed to be purple or not, I don't know. I do know that I've seen them in orange as well. And this wire looks like it was kind of stripped, and you can see here that it was recrimped with a different wire, which is called, looks like it's gray with a yellow stripe. And that one, as you can see, burned up pretty bad here. So basically it's just going straight to ground. So this relay is connecting power to ground immediately when you key on. Inside the car, it's literally going directly to a ground node. That needs to be, this is all going to be scrapped, and we are going to be replacing it. All right, so part of the problem that I've seen is obviously we fix this ground, right? That ground is fixed, first of all. And second of all, I see on the C101 here on the, this is on the engine side, we've got on the chassis side, you've got these two green wires. You've got a green wire, and then you've got a green wire with a yellow stripe. Those are both your switched power. Now keep in mind that we have an engine that has injectors, it's got coils, it takes power to operate these things, so that's why the wires are typically thicker in order to operate those items. In this case, looks like we didn't have that here. This is the thicker green wire that should have connected to it, and he used a thin green wire, which I'm not sure where this is coming from, where it needs to go, but this is not going to be able to supply the current needed to operate the coils and the injectors together. So this obviously needs to be fixed. We're not going to be able to start this car until we do that. But this is one of the main things that I think is wrong with this harness. We can obviously fix it and wire it up just to get it mocked up, but we need to make sure that all the wires on this C101 are correct. So we've got Dan over here that's going to be putting the test light on the switched power. This is right here on the body side. And there are the two green wires. Those are those two pins right there. And when I key on, I'm expecting that those are going to turn on. Yep. Although the radio is on right now and the key is not in the ignition. Key should be right here. Okay, ready?
I'm grounded. And
Okay, ignition is on. Okay, forget it. Yeah, we got work to do on this. Good. Okay, the battery is getting power. That's great.
all right.
But there's some lights that are on.
Okay.
The marker lights are on, and the key's not even on, so. Yeah. Okay, so we're trying to take a bit more of a holistic approach to this entire vehicle because I cannot get switched power going to that C101. There's actually a C103, actually it's called a C104, and it's a 3-pin connector underneath that side, underneath the glove box, and that connector on the early models is where switch power goes to the rest of the car. Unfortunately, we're putting a S52 in here. An S52 is currently installed here, and it demands a lot more current for this from the switched power because it has individual coils, individual injectors, and that just drives more current demand. So what we need to do is make sure that that engine is getting the right amount of current with the right amount of gauge wire, because if it's not, it's going to burn up wires. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. You can see right here that this pin is one of the switch powers. There's another switch power right here, but this is the one we're really concerned about. This is the green wire, big, thick green wire. And this guy looks like it just pulled right out of the socket. And I don't know if you can notice this very well, but right in here, you can see like some rust or corrosion or some sort of burning. I'm not sure what that is. But we have to take this connector out and see what's going on the mating side, because this mating side isn't distributing the switched power to the rest of the fuse box, and that's a major problem. All right, so we did figure that out. You put the key in, 2 clicks, everything should start to light up. Nothing's lighting up. Why is that? Well, we separated our connector here just for that one green wire, and when we connect them, everything kind of comes alive here. See? On, off, on, off. Even the headlights. Headlights work, don't work. Work, don't work. That guy right there, the middle wire is switched power, and that switched power goes to the DME. We're not going to be using that because the switched power on that is not high enough gauge for what we need. So we're going to end up wiring an independent one. But we will fix this connector. We will repin it, and we will then move on to where that power is going on the C101. Now, as I said earlier, this is the second harness that was installed into this S52 and the same problem happened. However, this harness is actually quite different than this harness. This was the original one that came with the engine. I've got this kind of jumbled up here just to compare what the original harness was to the new harness. This new harness doesn't have any way of taking in that switch power from the key of the car and waking up the DME. It's usually a green wire, like I was explaining earlier. On the original harness, that does exist here in terms of a green wire operating a relay that then allows the rest of the DME and the main relay to wake up at that point. We don't have that here. I don't see it here. We looked everywhere we couldn't find it. Because this harness is so jumbled up and it doesn't have that, and we gotta fix the X20 C101 interface anyway. We don't even want to bother trying to start this car this way anyway. It's just there's too many variables, and I just don't want to introduce any problems to the engine or the car and instigating some sort of fire or something. So I use this as a lessons learned. We got a new harness coming. I'm going to be putting that in next. All right, so here's the new harness. Just came in fresh off the boat. It's not brand new. It's a very, very good used harness. This is the X20. We're going to cut this X20 off, and which we just did, and we're going to splice the C101 onto it. So the C101 is actually from one of these old harnesses. This is what we're going to take. So this guy here, we're going to cut this off of this old harness, and we're going to take these wires and splice them onto the correct locations so that the engine wiring harness mates to the car correctly. So when we work on harnesses, you need to be as methodical as you possibly can be. So we laid out the whole harness. We know where everything goes, generally speaking. And what we really wanted to do here, the goal was to repin the X20 on the S52 harness with the C101 that belongs in the E30 harness. Now, wire color codes do mean a thing, and all the pins also have a place. And the pins that come from the E30 need to match up with the pins that are going onto the S52. So it's not necessarily the colors that you need to match, but you do need to look through the wiring diagrams to make sure that all the wires that you're splicing is correct. Now, when you're talking about a rudimentary engine swap like this, you only really deal with like 4 or 5 main wires, and everything else is just noise. You've got your power, your switch power, any type of grounds, and a couple of signals like tach or engine temperature, something like that. It's very, very simple. to know, once you know what the colors are, it's just a matter of splicing them in and then neatening it all up. So this is the journey about troubleshooting at every stage and learning something new. So I have a green wire here that's coming from the C101. Okay, that's your switched power basically. And that needs to connect to the switched power, which powers basically everything else when you turn the key on the DME. These two green wires are identical in nature. However, I don't know which one is actually the switched power. Are they the same? I don't know. I measured continuity between the two, and they do not have continuity. So they are different wires going to different places. Which one is the actual switched power? So if I were to do this and do a continuity test from here to my multimeter, right? Here's my multimeter here, and run it to do a quick check, just to make sure I have continuity. You can hear that, good. Now I have my relays, and I know that this relay is my switched power relay. So when you activate that small green wire, it actually closes the relay and it allows the red wire, the big red wire, to connect to this big green wire, and then that provides switch power to the whole setup. So if I were to just do and connect this one to the small green wire right here, you can hear that it's connected. So I know that this wire here is the same wire as this wire here. Now it's time to lay all of this in. I'm going to start with the general direction of where the big stuff is supposed to go. And then as you continue to go, you fine tune, and then you start plugging things in. In this case, I have a pretty good idea of where things go. And I know that if I just take some of this and just start laying it in its general location, that I'd be in a pretty good spot to then fine tune and get all of this exactly where it needs to go. All right, so I know it looks a little bit messy, but we're going to clean that up. I wanted to start working on getting this thing started. Now, I've got all of my powers hooked up to the main power grid, and the gauge wires are connected to the appropriate sizes on the terminals. I know that I have power going to everything. I've got my C101 connected, and I don't have the fuel pump connected yet, but that's because I needed an extra relay for that one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that when I turn the key on, that everything kind of clicks and does its thing, and then do a quick start and see if this thing really just fires up. Let me do a key on, see if I can hear anything. Okay, everything's kind of coming together here. All right, let's make sure that I have 12 volts here at the green wire, because that's going to activate when I plug the C101 in. That's going to activate this. See if I have power on key on. Go into the green. Yep, I do. So this is good. I'm going to turn the engine without starting it. Obviously, like I said earlier, I don't have the fuel pump turned on. So this is just going to literally everything just clicked on. So I know that this is going to turn over really nice. Excellent. Now let's keep this one take, because what I want to do is I literally want to put power to the fuel pump and then turn it right on over. Ready? Here we go. And there you go. Let me turn it off. It'll run. I know it'll run. It's idling real nice. I don't actually have a fuel leak anymore, at least. No problems with any of the wires. I feel pretty good about it. Let me race the engine a little bit. Let me get a video of this. That started right up. I'm getting good at this. This is the second one I did where I started up for the first time and knew it was going to start. Ruben's was the first. Cool.